beautiful people. Today's topic may not be a fun one, but it is necessary to talk about because it can catch people off guard that don't expect it. And not everyone will get anger that surfaces using Amanita, but most people will. And I wanted to talk about that. Remember that all of my work on YouTube is heavily censored, so I move all of my videos to amanitadreamer.net. I believe this one will be able to stay on YouTube uncensored. If you want to get involved in our private community with Zoom meetings all month long, go to mushroomvoice.com. That's also where my store is. So let's talk about the anger thing. Remember that these entheogens that we're using are not like take it one time, cure all kind of thing. And while you can have different experiences while on them, they're not just these miracle cures. And they go a long way toward doing what would maybe take a couple of years in therapy to doing that in one experience or any one issue that we want to deal with. These entheogens can move you through the core of those issues in minutes rather than months in therapy. And one of the things about this mushroom, remember, is that it is not psilocybin. And psilocybin will tend to work with our relationships to other living things. But this one deals with us. And sometimes this mushroom gets a bad reputation because some people think that enlightenment, spirituality, mental health means getting out of your body, realizing that we're all connected. It's all love. We're all one. Why are you worrying about triggers? If you're angry, you're doing something wrong. It doesn't matter. Just remember we're all one. And I have an issue with that because the whole reason we're here in the meat sack is to experience the space-time continuum, to feel, to be here and have these relationships and experiences, not to just go woo and play all the time. And there are things that we have no control over that can happen to us, like childhood trauma and damage and pain and abuse. Or we can have a perfectly great childhood and everything is great in our lives, and then something can happen to our lives outside of us that is just random, that can be horribly painful and traumatic. And we have to be here, and we have to move through this and experience this. And I believe that some of that spirituality of people that just like to do high doses of things that take you out of your body is a form of escapism, and again, using spirituality as an excuse not to feel and be human. And the Amanita mushroom changes all that. And it might be why some people don't like this mushroom. But this mushroom absolutely will heal you. And in my opinion, is where we all should be starting inside us and then working our way into the relationships to others. And then global issues that ayahuasca and DMT can deal with, or, like intergalactic, universal, that whole thing, and so like it's layered. But what this mushroom is going to do is work on pre-birth to around age 6, that vault, that inner developmental period that we then build our core view of ourselves and then others on. And if this mushroom is going to work in those areas, then it would stand to reason that if you have deep inner things that you can't figure out what they are, why these triggers keep happening, they seem like they're about today, but you keep making the same decisions over and over and over. You keep getting these same bad results. You keep being attracted to the same things. You keep choosing the same bad jobs, same friendships. And that pattern of behavior, no matter how hard you've worked on it, is because you haven't actually helped deal with that core issue that's springing from. A lot of people that have disassociated from their bodies will find that this mushroom very quickly will bring them back, either because of physical trauma or because of emotional stuff that has filled them with shame. And so they try to stay out. This mushroom helps us learn our boundaries, our core sense of self, owning our space here, our right to be here, our divinity, the ego through which we feel this, being able to feel worthy again, ownership of the space that we're taking up on the planet, which leads into then our creativity and our need, our motivation to go out and be, to change the world, to do things, to paint that stuff, to build that foundation, to start that homestead, to create a co-op, all of these purpose-driven, life-driven things. If you're stuck and can't do those things, this will not only take that trauma and start to transmute it, but it will start to help you then set the proper boundaries you need to set. Love yourself enough, and then go out into the world and create and be what you came here to be. That means then all of those boundary violations you have suffered in your life, especially in those core formative years, you may, from the very beginning of a microdosing protocol with this, or your first macrodose, or your first high T dose or ceremonial experience, you may suddenly come out of that with anger and then be disappointed that either you didn't feel what you expected to feel, which we'll talk about, or you got anger instead of feeling great, like a bunch of other people talk about. And then that can be very disappointing. So a lot of people are disappointed in the experience they feel with Amanita because, and this is my opinion, people who get this amazing experience right off the bat tend to not be as disassociated. This is a trend, 4 years now working with it, that I see. I could be wrong, but this is what I see. Versus people who are highly disassociated, who tend to use entheogens that have very high trip factors, that tend to choose experiences in their lives that are very busy, escapist, fast. They tended to use previous drugs that were high out of your body experience drugs. They tend to run away from circumstances and things they don't want to deal with. Anything that's going to get them to feel or be back in their body. They tend to be treatment resistant or therapy avoidant. It seems those types of people don't enjoy the experience that they get, or it feels lackluster because what it's doing is it's bringing them back into their body. It's making them feel their meat sack more. It's making them feel human again. It's making them get back in touch with their organs and their heartbeat and their heart. Those feelings can be uncomfortable if there's no other entheogen that's making you as aware of your boundaries and your body. They tend to take you out there and you get universal consciousness and love, where this one is going to bring you back in here. The reason this is a good idea is, I will posit that if you are an escapist, then there's a reason you're finding it really, really hard to get back in here. And that means you probably have a lot of core shame and a lot of core wounding and a lot of core boundary violations, which this will work on. So if you found all these other things aren't really helping you, and you find when you use this that the experience of it while you're under the influence of it isn't that great, perhaps you found your medicine. Not that these others aren't, but perhaps you need this too. And then what this is going to do is it's going to go to the core of the things that are keeping you out. And that will be boundary violations when you were young, not just sexual abuse, but when you're grabbed by the arm and yanked, grabbed by the back of the neck and led places, physically hit. These are extreme boundary violations, personal boundaries, right? The whole physical boundary violation. But then also emotional boundary violations like gaslighting, like a lot of narcissistic parents can do, telling you, well, I'll give you something to cry about. And no, that's not true. We didn't do that. When you just experienced that. No, you're not afraid. You better suck it up and do it anyway. That's ridiculous. Mocking and shaming. These are violating your boundaries as a human being to have your own perceptions of reality and your own feelings. If you're shamed for spilling something, you're shamed because you put your shoes on differently, because you still wet the bed when you were 6, if you didn't keep up in school. I mean, just all this stuff is core wounding and violating of your core sense of self and your own integrity that you need to develop a good core. All of those are boundary violations. And it is worthy of anger when you're first opening that space up, when you either never have in your entire adult life, or you are for the first time in a long time, or the few times you've been in there, it was to have these huge life crises because it was so wounding to open you up to that kind of shame. The beauty in this is it will take you there with gentility and love, but it's being offset by the core of it and how awful it is. But the Amanita will help make that easy, either through microdosing or macrodosing or high dose tea. I think nobody should be doing any high dose muscimol until they've been working with this mushroom for a long time. It can be very traumatizing and upsetting to do full muscimol doses when you don't even know what's in that core. And I think that's why this mushroom gets such a bad reputation and people talk about it being a horrible experience. They just weren't ready for that yet. And why put yourself through that? I mean, who says that you got to go all in like that? This is about healing and with grace. Like there's no race to do this. So we can start with this, start with microdosing, move into macrodosing, move into high dose tea. And I have dosing and all that stuff on amanitadreamer.net. But expect then, if you've got boundary violations, if you've got core wounding like that, then it's not surprising you're going to feel angry about that shit. That anger is important to move, find coping mechanisms to move it. But also I want to caution you, this could take a while. I know it took me about 9 months and it felt like at times it was just ridiculously out of control. And it was a little upsetting and disconcerting to feel that, okay, I'm glad for the relief of all that anxiety and panic attacks, but my God, if it's being replaced with anger, like this just really sucks. Be patient with your body. You're healing. This is hard work. But is that not amazing to heal some serious core trauma in 9 months to a year? You keep working with this. And sort of the worst aspect of it is in your daily life, you're going to have a short fuse. You need to stay off social media when that anger arises. Allow it, lean into it, give it space, let it breathe, honor that it was protecting you and it's giving you information now that it is telling you, rightfully so. When you couldn't be angry as a child, you're giving it that voice and that space now as an adult. I just wanted to caution you about it. You can come out of high doses angry. If you are the kind of person that tends to deflect onto other people, blame other people, have a serious victim mentality, and that comes from feeling powerless and helpless, which comes from serious boundary violations and feeling unable to do things for yourself, mocked and criticized, right? When you get to this place where the Amanita wants to free you, stop that feeling low and incapable, powerless and victim-like, owning your actual power and sense of self, when that is also coming with the anger and you're a person that tended to blame and rage out at others, then you're going to be tempted when this anger first surfaces to blame either the program that's not working, the therapy that's not working, the mushroom that's not working, the job that's pissing you off. And I'm not saying your job doesn't deserve your anger, that you shouldn't look at your job. You should probably be looking at things and trying to decide if these friends or relationships or jobs are serving you anymore. And that's part of what you'll do through the course of your time that you spend with this entity. That will absolutely be a part of the process. But I promise you, the anger's yours. You may be angry at some of the damage that this job or this relationship has caused you, and that very well may be warranted. It's just easier to look at that because you have a current memory of it. It's fresh. Maybe it just happened yesterday. But the fact that it's surfacing now that you're using that is letting you know that this is coming from somewhere else. Why did you allow this behavior in the first place? Today, because it was done to you way back then. This anger that feels sort of disconcerting and ungrounding and frightening at times, that's coming from your original core wounding. Be patient with it. Don't harm others with it. Let that stuff move. Let it ride without blame. There's plenty of time to make decisions about your life when you get to a better grounded place. So I would say after a year of working with this, when you've developed a really good conversation with it, when you've done an incredible amount of integration and healing, then look at your life and start making the big life decisions. But don't be making those life decisions right out of the gate. And I think other entheogens, that's the same advice, although their timeline is a lot shorter. They say within 3 weeks or 3 months or whatever. I'm going to caution you to wait until the anger part of it's gone. For me, it was 9 months. For you, it may just be a couple of weeks. I don't know. But if you need integration, we have a specialist who works with this mushroom, an integration specialist. And her name is Natalia. And she has her square little ad thingy on my website where all of my approved vendors are. So amanitadreamer.net, where to buy. And you can locate this, but also you can find her there. But also she works for free in our community, russianvoice.com, and she's one of the many meetings we have every month. And she just works with people there in that Zoom. But if you want one-on-one with her, you can find her there. And I hope that this has helped. If you have questions, drop them in the comment section. As always, I appreciate your support. Thank you for being here. I love you, beautiful people.